And welcome into Battery Power. I'm Grant McCauley. He's Chris Willis, and we are putting 2023 in our rearview mirror. We're looking ahead to next season, but before we ring in the new year and do all of that, we're going to look back one last time on a season that was quite remarkable right up until the bitter end. Once again, we appreciate you joining us all year long. We've had a lot of fun talking about the Braves. We've gone through some ups and some downs, but we've been here all along, and we appreciate you making us a part of your baseball regimen wherever you might connect with us right here on YouTube. If you see the clips on social media, we appreciate you sharing those. And of course, we would love it if you'd subscribe and share the show with a friend and all of those good things, which help the show and the channel grow. We, of course, hope your holidays have been wonderful and you're ready for everything ahead of us in the new year. Chris, though, before we get started, I really feel like as we look back on 2023, it was a year that was great right up until it was not. But as you kind of reflect on what the 2023 season was, and we watched a lot of it together, what stands out to you? What are your takeaways? And how will you look back on what was, I think, a very unique and very special season in its own right?
As you mentioned, it was a bitter ending. But I thought I've been watching the Braves a long time, and I've never seen a regular season like that, especially from an offensive standpoint. I mean, it was unreal. Just the accolades that they put up, the records they broke. Ronald Acuña Jr. by himself, and then when you factor in the rest of the lineup, I mean, just to see a team slug at the rate that they did and outslug the rest of the league the way they did, it was remarkable. And I mean, I think this offense is really, really good and going to be good for a long time. But I wonder if we'll ever see just 1 through 9 click the way that it did in 2023.
Yeah, it was unlike anything I've ever seen in Braves baseball and really even Major League Baseball at large. That's how you have a record setting offense the way that the Braves did. And I go back to the thing that I kept hearing as we get to August and September, which was if the only team that you can really rightfully be compared to is the 1927 New York Yankees, I think you've done a thing or two right. And the Braves, as they set the Major League Baseball home run record or tied that record set by the Minnesota Twins, they led all of baseball in runs scored. They slugged 500 as a team. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. And to me, obviously, and for fans out there all summer long, it was so much fun to see this offense doing all of those things. But I'd be lying, Chris, if I said it wasn't disappointing to see those lights go out in October.
Yeah, and I mean that's the tough part about it because you play all those months in the regular season, 162 games, and then it comes down to a best of 5 in the postseason, and the regular season really doesn't matter at that point. But at the same time, I don't want to be too negative on it. I mean, nobody liked the ending. I'm sure the Braves didn't like the ending either.
No.
But I mean, it was truly a special season, as special a regular season as you could see, as you could have, especially when you factor in the injuries they had in the pitching staff and just again, I mean, we're talking about historical numbers offensively. And when you look at those numbers and you look at how far ahead of the second place they were in homers, slugging percentage, stuff like that, I mean, it's just, it was unprecedented. Like you said, you've got to go way back to some of the best offenses ever to even find a comparison.
It's the Braves club that I feel like has made hope a renewable resource insofar as you've got a lot of these guys locked down. They're going to be here for most of the rest of the decade. So if you saw what they did in 2023, you have to believe there's a capability to do similar things in 2024 and beyond. And when we talk about some of the top performers, which I wanted to do before we got out of 2023 and move on to 2024, because once the season's over, I mean, you can look back on it a little bit, but now it's about what are you going to do each and every day, beginning that first day of spring training, which is right around the corner. But among the many great performers for the Braves, I felt like there were 3 men in particular that stood above the rest for the most part based on what they did this season. And I don't think it's any surprise. I'm not going to save him for the main event. I'm going to open with him. Ronald Acuña Jr. The Braves' powerful offense set the tone for a memorable season, and nobody did it better than Ronald did. The unanimous National League MVP created a category unto himself, actually several of those. The 40-70 Club, though, it's got its own T-shirt, as do many things throughout the course of that 2023 season. And it was a career year for Acuña, who led Major League Baseball with 217 hits, a .416 on base percentage, 149 runs scored, and 73 stolen bases, both of those modern club records. And Acuña stole more bases than any player in the last 26 years across Major League Baseball. There was just all kinds of special stuff, and we could probably spend most, if not all, of the rest of this episode talking about what Ronald Acuña Jr. did this year, but it all added up to a season in which he erased any and all doubt coming in that he is a bona fide superstar at the top of his game. Chris, it was another level altogether. What can we possibly say about Ronald Acuña Jr.'s 2023 season that hasn't already been said?
I mean, he was magnificent from start to finish, and I think that's the most impressive thing. If you look at his numbers by month, he never had a bad month. He never cooled off at all. He was steady all the way through. And I think you and I could have dreamed of him having 40 homers, 40 stolen bases, maybe, even a 50-50 season.
Mhm.
But to see him hitting nearly 340 with an on base percentage over 410. I mean, the runs scored, if he's getting on base, he's going to score runs.
Yeah.
I mean, just top to bottom, it was like every month when I would look at his numbers, I would find something else that I'm like, wow, he's just off the charts here. And I mean, just across the board, I mean, I think it'll go down as one of the best statistical seasons in Braves franchise history.
It easily is. It's one of the best statistical seasons in Major League Baseball history when you factor in that power speed combo. And we'll get into that a little bit more later when we talk about some of the great moments along the way and what put together that MVP caliber season that Ronald Acuña Jr. had. But when you do look at the Braves offense, as you mentioned, 1 through 9, clicking seemingly all year long, an offense that really had no equal in baseball in the modern era, if we really want to be very specific about what this Braves club was able to do, you knew that there had to be an MVP candidate or two in an offense like that. And the Braves, honestly, Chris, I think they had maybe 3 good MVP candidates in their lineup every day. And I know you wanted to talk about one because Ronald Acuña Jr. scoring runs, that had a lot to do with who was driving him in. And Matt Olson was driving in more runs than anybody else in that Braves lineup and anybody else in baseball in 2023.
Yeah, I mean, Matt Olson, I mean, 10, 15 years ago, he would have been the runaway winner for MVP. That's how the game has changed. I mean, 54 homers, lead the majors in RBIs. He had a monster season, and I was really happy to see it because his first season in Atlanta wasn't. I mean, it was great, but he had the slump in the second half, and a lot of
Mhm.
people kind of, it soured a lot of people because you looked at, Freddie Freeman in Los Angeles putting up MVP caliber numbers, and I think people forgot just how good Matt Olson could be, and he showed them this year. I mean, from start to finish. I mean, he's consistently, one of the best bats in the major leagues, and I just felt like, Ronald was so great that Olson got overshadowed a little bit. A lot of people in the Braves lineup got put up tremendous numbers and got overshadowed. So, to me, I mean, Ronald was clearly the MVP, but I think, I thought Olson should have probably finished in the top 3 of MVP voting.
Yeah, I don't think that would have been a surprise just about any year. I mean, if Ronald Acuna Jr. didn't do what he did this year, and I know there's the case for Mookie Betts, I know there's the case for Freddie Freeman in Los Angeles. Both those guys are great players, had great seasons, but Matt Olson had an historic season in and of his own right on a team that led Major League Baseball in wins. And I think there's a lot of value there, even if the argument starts with, or the case starts with, some of the older, more traditional metrics. It's not going above and beyond to find the wins above replacement, which typically for first baseman is a little bit more difficult, but I'll put that to the side. You hit 50 something homers, you drive in more runs than anybody in baseball. That usually gets you on the map for the MVP discussion. The other guy, the third guy in all of this is Austin Riley, who started slowly, kind of had some ups and downs to his season. But by the time we got to the end of the year, Chris, Austin Riley had put together yet another 30 plus homer season, continues to be a cornerstone for this franchise. And I think he's cementing himself as perhaps the best third baseman in baseball. I know there's some other guys that are on that list, and I'm not saying that those guys aren't good and that Austin's at number one. But Chris, as he moves into the prime of his career, which he's smack dab in the middle of at this point, I mean, how excited are you to see what Austin Riley can do in 2024 and beyond, as he does have, of course, the biggest and longest contract ever handed out by the Braves?
Yeah, I mean, no doubt. And I mean, what we just talked about, it's like he got overshadowed by what Acuna and Matt Olson were doing. Because when you look at his final numbers, I mean, he's right there. Maybe he didn't have that scorching hot month that we've seen from him in the past, but
Mhm.
he was pretty steady all year. I mean, he scored 117 runs, which is something that jumped out at me, and it's a testament to this Braves lineup still. But 37 homers. To me, the defense was the thing. It was the biggest, thing for me. I think he's really improved defensively. There were some question marks about him. Had a good year defensively last year, and I'm excited because I mean he's just a guy, like you say, he plays every single day. He
Mhm.
produces. He's locked up for the longest contract the Braves have ever handed out. I mean, he's going to be here, and I mean, by the time his career is finished in Atlanta, I mean, his numbers are going to be astronomical. He's going to be up there against all the team franchise leaders.
Yeah, and you may have another number up there getting retired by the time Austin Riley is done with his career. Same thing could be said for Ronald Acuña Jr., maybe Matt Olson. I don't know. This is a great team. It's a lot of this core that's going to be spending a lot of time together, I should say. And one of the other guys who's locked up that had an outstanding season, well, he wasn't swinging the bat. He was trying to miss bats, and he did it better than anybody else in Major League Baseball. That's Spencer Strider. He became a 20-game winner. He led MLB with 281 punch-outs, setting a new Braves record in the process. It's hard to believe, Chris, all of this stuff was happening in just his first full season in the starting rotation, a career high in everything as a professional, starting with innings pitched, all while showcasing his competitive style every fifth day. He became a little bit homer prone last season, and that kind of manifested at some inopportune times and spoiled more than a couple of performances for him. It pushed his ERA up to 3.81 compared to a league leading 285 FIP. All told, though, Spencer Strider showcased every fifth day his incredible strikeout stuff and became Atlanta's best starting pitcher in 2023. Chris, how do you size up his season, and what do you look for from Spencer Strider moving forward?
I mean, the thing is, you look at his season, you look at how dominant he was with the 281 strikeouts, and you feel like, he's gonna probably get even better. I mean, that's the thing I look at. He just completed his first full season in the majors, and then he's still developing that change up. He's still getting better with his command. He's probably the hardest working player that I know. I mean, you and I both have sat there in post games and seen him come out after a 12 strikeout game and talk about, the things he could have done better, have been
Right.
better at. So, you don't have to worry about him settling on anything. He's always trying to improve. And I think that'll continue throughout his career, but it was impressive to watch. I mean, like you said, the homer thing was a little bit, it spoiled what I felt like. I think it soured what I felt like was a great season because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people didn't look any further than the ERA.
Yeah.
But the peripherals were great. And I think that home run thing will regress back to the mean a little bit. And, you're just going to see, as long as he can stay healthy, I mean, you're just going to see dominant seasons from Spencer Strider going forward.
Yeah, health is always the big thing. It's the X factor for every player. It's an obvious thing, but it's something that you cannot control, honestly. So as you look at that, I talked to John Smoltz a little bit this past year, and he was the guy that had that strikeout record. And he said he's looking forward to seeing what Spencer Strider becomes when he realizes, yes, I can strike out a lot of hitters. I can still lead the league in strikeouts, but I could maybe find ways to navigate through starts and go even deeper. And then you started hearing Spencer Strider saying that as the year was going along. I feel like, to your point, the hard work, the dedication, plus that stuff, I think the sky's the limit, obviously, for Spencer Strider, and he showcased a lot of that in 2023. Now, there were more than a few big moments and highlights for the Braves this year. Those just a handful of the big performers that made the 2023 season for the Braves a special one. I wanted to talk about a few of these moments as we put a lid on 2023, though, and I'll start with one that became a catchphrase. I'm wearing the T-shirt. Pour Larry a crown. What was supposed to be a pitching duel in early June between Spencer Strider and Justin Verlander, well, it devolved into a wild slugfest won by Atlanta when Ozzie Albies hit a game-winning two-run homer in the bottom of the 10th for a 12-10 comeback victory for the Braves. It ended a streak of 122 straight victories for the Mets when leading after 8 innings. I think it more or less drove a stake through their heart if they thought that 2023 was going to be the year that they finally got the best of Atlanta. And if that wasn't enough, it all happened on a night that we got a TV broadcast booth of Chipper Jones, Tom Glavine, John Smoltz, and Jeff Francoeur all together to call one of the most memorable nights of the season. Chris, you and I were there. It was simply an incredible night of Braves baseball.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. It was an unbelievable game. But going back and watching the broadcast and listen to it, I mean, I loved those stories. I loved hearing those guys talk about things. And then, the moment, I believe it was Ozzie Albies home run,
Mhm.
with the call,
Yeah.
Jeff's call, Poor Larry a crown. That was outstanding. I mean, I've really enjoyed seeing those old players in the booth because I think they've got so much insight. And it's just a different look, as far as baseball broadcast. Well, to me, honestly, rewatching it, the game was kind of secondary. It was kind of, you're going back to the innings because you want to hear what they're going to talk about, what stories they're going to tell. And, I mean, it was a lot of fun. And to see the Braves come back and win
Yeah.
on that night, obviously was outstanding.
Yeah, unbelievable. You couldn't have, I think, scripted a better game. It's totally different than the script for the game when you thought it was going to be this pitcher's duel. You got Tom Glavine and John Smoltz up there, and by the time it gets to the end, it's a wild and crazy finish. And Larry, by the way, Larry Jones Jr., if he wanted to do that broadcast thing every day, I think he'd be pretty good at that as well. It was a whole lot of fun. And they did it again a little bit later in the season, but Bally Sports put on quite a show with that broadcast booth. Another moment I want to key in on, and yes, I know how the season ended. I know how the series went against Philadelphia, but Michael Harris and Austin Riley turning the double play to in game 2 of the National League Division Series. I thought it was a spark that might, really swing the momentum in the Braves' favor. That didn't happen, but it's one of the greatest catches I've ever seen. Heads up awareness by Austin Riley to turn it into a double play, and the stage doesn't get much bigger. So we were there. It was deafening at Truist Park when Atlanta finished that game off, Chris, and Michael Harris just continues to show that he is an awfully special player. I know the offense hasn't necessarily been there in the postseason, but that glove is unquestioned.
Yeah, and I mean we've it's almost my thinking back to that play, obviously, when the ball left the bat, I thought, well, he's going to catch that, and then he just keeps running, keeps running, keeps running, keeps running. And next thing he's up against the fence. Just an unbelievable play, the loudest I've ever heard Truist Park. Unfortunately, I wasn't there for any of the World
Right.
Series games, but over the last 2 seasons, loudest I've ever heard Truist Park. And then, but I think with Michael Harris, I think we're almost at risking Andrew Jones territory. We're in that he made so many spectacular catches look easy that we overlook him just a little bit because he's made some unbelievable plays in center field, and that was at a key moment, big part of the game. It was Braves' only postseason win this year. I mean, that was just huge, and it was awesome to see it in person.
Yeah, an incredible moment. Again, a series that didn't go the way the Braves wanted it to, but you can see just in different ways how different players on a given night can help impact a game. And Michael Harris's glove is one of the big factors for the Braves any night that he has a chance to make a play. You're right. I mean, we just saw Andrelton Simmons retired this week, the former Brave. He was awfully fun to watch on defense. I think second only to me to Andrew Jones. I said that on social media this week, but man, Michael Harris, by the time he's done, he's going to be pretty high up on that list as well. Now, of course, the guy who was at the top of a lot of lists across Major League Baseball as far as best all around is concerned, it's Ronald Acuña Jr. His list of highlights, we'd be here all day and all night trying to go through all of them. But the 40-70 club is built on a lot of those highlights. Let's flash back to late August. Braves roll into Dodger Stadium for a showdown with their perennial rivals. And it was built as much, I think, Chris, as on the MVP race as anything else between those two teams. And Acuña and Mookie Betts were just going at it. But Ronald solidified his case with a grand slam to become the first 30-60 player ever. He batted 500 in that series, homered in every game. He even found time to get married on that trip, if I'm not mistaken. He quite simply stole the show, as Ronald has been known to do with respect to other bigger milestones that he would go on to reach and others that we're going to talk about. This one felt special to me. What stood out about Ronald Acuña Jr.'s season and becoming the first 30-60, 40-60, 40-70 player that we've ever seen?
Yeah. I mean, again, it's unbelievable. In that Dodgers series, I really think that's what spearheaded him towards the MVP at that point. He was kind of the early favorite. Mookie Betts kind of worked his way back into the conversation, and I thought Acuña just, Betts was great in that series too. Had a 2-homer game, but Acuña was just outstanding in the Braves. I think won 3 or 4 of that in that series. So, it was very impressive. And then, like you said, 30-60, I mean, the grand slam for 30-60. And then, 40-40. I know I grew up in the 80s, and the power speed combination was a big talking point back then. I remember Ron Gant, back-to-back 30-30 seasons. 40-40 was kind of a mythical number until Jose Canseco did it in 1988. So, to me, once he hit his 40th home run, that was a huge moment for me because, because I think, he was on the cusp of doing it in 2019. He probably would have got there in 2021. He might not have got the 40 stolen bases that season, but still, 30-30 was in his grasp. And to see him get in an exclusive club the way he did, 40-70, I just think it kind of cements, his legacy as a player. And I mean, it's funny to be talking about his legacy when he's just 25 years old.
26 years old as of a few days ago. So what's he going to do in the other portion of his career that's still in front of him? The fact that he's in his mid-20s should be pretty scary. And the fact that he is a guy that you can talk about as a 40-40 candidate year in and year out. He almost did it in 2019, as you mentioned, Chris. I mean, 2020 obviously was an opportunity that was lost for a lot of players in terms of playing time was concerned. Then Ronald gets hurt in 21. As I talked about earlier, there were so many questions about, well, is the 2022 Ronald Acuña Jr. going to be the version that we're going to see going forward? I didn't believe that, and I don't think that there were too many people out there that did. I took the leap of faith. I started a 40-40 tracker on opening day, so I'm not saying it to pat myself on the back because I did nothing. He did all of it, but you just knew that this was a special player to watch each and every night. As we wrap up this episode, Chris, I mean, so many moments, records, milestones this season for the Braves. Those were a handful of next level performers and highlights that stood out to me and to us. Anything else that jumps out at you as we kind of recap and reflect on the 2023 Braves season before we ring in the new year?
I'd like to point out Ozzy Albies because, you know, he had the injuries in 2022, and then, you know, he came back with a 30 homer, 100 RBI season that nobody paid any attention to because of all his teammates were putting up monster numbers. But, you know, I thought he had a really, really good season at the plate, you know, and just continues to marvel because when you look at that guy, you don't think he's going to put up that kind of numbers offensively, but, you know, he continues to show that he's that type of player.
Just a tremendous player is Ozzy Albies. And I think, you know, a leader, a spark for this club, a heartbeat of this club, whatever you want to call it. He has some intangible values that, you know, folks may not see day in and day out. You can tell he loves playing the game of baseball, but I think that it energizes his teammates as well. And that's something that was on display throughout 2023. I mean, we could sit here again for a very long time talking about some of the statistical accomplishments of this team. Ultimately, the postseason did not go the way that the Braves wanted to. But as you look at this club, the way that it's built and the opportunity to maybe find other pieces and make it a little bit better, this is a team that once again is going to have aspirations of winning another World Series. It's World Series or bust. People ask me that all the time. Like, what are the Braves focused on? You hear a lot about wanting to win the division. That's just step one. They want to get beyond that particular step in the 2024 campaign. Chris, I've enjoyed doing this with you over the past few weeks. I look forward to a big year of it in 2024 and had an awful lot of fun watching baseball and chatting baseball with you over the course of 2023. And I look forward to doing that again in 2024.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well. I appreciate the opportunity to be on BPTV with you, and I'm looking forward to what I hope is another record-breaking 24 season.
Hey, the opportunity goes both ways. Thank you again. That's going to do it for this edition and this season of BPTV. We appreciate all your support and look forward to more great Braves talk in 2024. Make sure you like this video, comment, and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate it. We will catch you next time and next year right here on BPTV. Until then, so long, Braves country.